Yeah, how's it going, guys? It's Richie Unicorn Caller here, and a long time no see. We are back, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we have the level 180 build, which is definitely not free to play. As a really big disclaimer, this is an expensive build. I highly just do not recommend it, but it's a pretty fun one, and honestly, I myself am shocked that it actually works. Like, everything about this build just is perfect. So let's jump right into it, and yeah, let's get on to it. So over here, let's start off with the hat. Over here, we got the Sanguine Monster Hide Crown. By the way, disclaimer, this ain't a challenge mode or advanced combat build. I will do that in a separate video. Also, happy holidays for everybody. But, the hat is pretty good. Comes with 1,255 health, 10% pip chance, 132 critical block, 14 resist, 7% life accuracy, 5 life pierce, 28 life damage, and 17 shad rating. Now, for the shield pin, we have the plus 46% for life, which is a level 180 version of the mending pin. So, yeah. So, off the hat alone, you're getting 46% outgoing, which is absolutely insane. And you'll see that with the hat and boots. Like, if you have any hat or boots that have a shield pin, it doesn't just have to be this particular hat. It can be honestly anything else. Like, if you wanted to go for critical, there's definitely a few options for critical here and there that also have a decent amount of resist. It's kind of like up to your own preference on what you want to do. Lately, we've seen a lot of caveats with some of these hats. Sometimes the hats will have a high resist, but it won't have any critical. Or sometimes it will have critical, but it won't have shadow rating. So it gets a little confusing. You know, it's kind of like your own kind of preference on what you want to do. And to be fair, Darkmoor crafting is still horrendous. The fact that they did kind of just change it a month in of the reagents that are needed just kind of leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So honestly, if you don't want to farm for Darkmoor, I would highly recommend something like Novus or Wallower or anything that has a shield pin with it. But moving on to the Robe, which is actually pretty interesting. We are going back to the Falconine Armor of Horus. Now, this is a really solid robe. I believe it came out this year, so it's fairly new, and it's really good. It's a really good robe, solid stats. It's pretty much a direct upgrade to the Spooky Carnival outfit. The reason I don't like it is just because the item card that it has is kind of lame. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wish we still had the Kiss of Death spell, but it is what it is. Let's go over the stats. You're going to have a whopping 1,711 health, which is actually a lot, and you're going to have 9% pip chance, 6% universal accuracy, 161 critical block, and 82 critical. And then we get 21 resist, 25 outgoing, and then 5% pierce. And then, of course, we get that little item card, Celestial Intervention, which basically gives a absorb shield at 985, and that will be placed on a single target. It might be good if you're playing with some low levels, but again, I don't really use the spell as much, but it is all up to your own preference. By the way, design-wise, we have the hat from the Heretical Academy. Not Heretical Academy. This is called the Heretical set. You can get it from doing all of the Selenopolis challenge modes and getting all the badges for that. For the robe, you probably remember it's from Castle Darkmoor, and not really hard to farm for, but just a nice little throwback item. And then for the boots, we have the Sanguine Monster Hide Snoppers. Again, if you don't want to use these boots or craft for any Darkmoor stuff, again, that's completely fine. You might even want something with a little bit more critical in it. But it has 1,624 max health, 7% pip chance, 202 critical block rating, which is actually insane, 16 resist, 5 accuracy for life, and then 5 for life pierce, and then 32 life damage, and then of course it's going to give us a little bit of a shad rating. Another reason why I don't like the robe as well is because it doesn't come with shad rating. So again, you see what I mean, like there's always something that's going to be taken away from some of these gear pieces. Now going back to the robe, I'm sorry, but you can get this as a bundle. It's from the Crocotopia River Palace bundle. Now this bundle does come in for a whopping $40. Again, it's kind of up to you on if you want to buy it or not. But it's a pretty cool bundle, and it comes with a pretty cool castle. So make sure to check that out, and yeah, just check it out. And then over here, as we go over to the boots, again, pretty much the same thing as a hat, as long as it has a shield pin. That's awesome, because we're going to slap on a 46% on that boots. Now it also comes with the item card Starfall, which basically decreases the damage that a player is doing. So, you know, basically kind of like a weakness. It's basically a weakness, right? Also for the hat, it is a plus 55 or minus 55% tower shield, which is also pretty handy as well. So those are the boots and the hats. The boots and the hats you can farm for, or just use whatever you want. The hat, a shield pin for life, or whatever you got. And then the robe, we got the Falcon 9 armor. The wand is really interesting, so check this out. We are actually using the Mad Animancer's Candle Bar, however you pronounce that, I apologize. Now you get this wand from the Mad Animancer's bundle, which was also released earlier this year as well, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a $30 bundle. It doesn't come with a house or anything like that, but it comes with the gear and the whole outfit and the pets. It's really cool. It's honestly a really cool bundle. So make sure to check that out as well. But it actually comes with a pretty awesome wand. This wand is all over the place. First of all, let's go into the stats of it. 82 critical block rating, 62 critical rating, 20% outgoing, and then you're going to start off with 2 single pips, which is a pretty interesting thing to have. You don't see a lot of wands that have this as a starting pip. Typically they have a power pip as a starting pip, but this wand actually starts you off with 2 instead of just 1 golden pip, right? So it's pretty much the same thing. And you also get 6% power pip chance on all schools. So that is going to increase our power pip rating up by a lot, which is actually very key to this build, as I'll show you in the stat recaps when we get to the end. Now over here we also get 4% universal accuracy, and we get a ton of pip conversion, 182%, right? And the socket has a square socket, so we slap on an 8% for a total of 28 outgoing on the wand. And it also comes with a few spells, such as Minor Blessing, and also an item card for Regenerate. Pretty cool stuff. Now, of course, you don't have to use this wand. There are plenty of other great options out there. You're not forced to use it, but this wand, especially for the pip chance, pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty solid choice. Now there's the other wand, the Wish Upon wand. You can also use that. It's just not gonna come with like all those extra power pip chance ratings. And it also comes with a Pigsy item card, which is actually pretty good. So some people might prefer that one. Some people might prefer this one. For me, I have both because we ball out here, and this is a really cool and solid wand. Pretty cool. So now the Athame. Oh my goodness, where do I start? It took KI 11 years just to finally have something that could rival the Dark Woman's Dagger. Now, if you guys don't know what the Dark Woman's Dagger is, it was a level 99 Athame that you get from Morganth. It was really solid. It came with like a base of 20% outgoing and 2 circle slots, and you can basically put like more outgoing jewels on there. It was a really good Athame. And then, you know, over time, they kind of did away with outgoing. There wasn't really much of a focus with it. But now, you know, it's 2025. We have the Dark Mode update, and now we have a little bit more focus on outgoing. I just really wish that they didn't mess up the whole crafting situation. But it is what it is, whatever. But I had to farm a different set of this because I actually have a different one that is strictly for advanced combat, which again, that will be in a separate video. But let's go over this Athame and why this Athame is really probably one of the best you're gonna want to get, especially as a life wizard, right? You're gonna get a ton of health, 1,502 max health, 203 mana, 18% pip chance rating, 10% universal damage, and then 10% for life damage, and then a base of a 22% outgoing. That is fantastic. Now, for the tier socket, you can use whatever you want. Even if you need more mana, go for it. I just have a moon shield because it's actually going to be important for one of the spells that we might be using in our deck setup. And then for the two the two sockets right here, the circle socket, we have the flawless mending opal, which this is a very hard it's a very hard opal to get. There is still no crafting recipe to it. I have no idea why. Maybe KI just doesn't have the coding for it. But it drops from a few bosses, and also the Azteca raid bosses. I think Kameka, but nobody's really doing the Azteca raid, so you're better off farming any of these guys right here. So I wish you guys luck. I personally have been farming Lord Very Tall. There's like 2 mob fights and then the main boss. He's not too bad. I actually got the opal quickly, which was a shock to me. Like, Christmas came early for me, so that one's really awesome. I would recommend farming either Renten, or however you pronounce that, or Lord Very Tall, whichever suits your fancy, and then hopefully you'll get that opal as soon as possible. But yeah, it will definitely take you. You're either gonna get lucky or not, because it does take a while. And then for the square socket, of course, we slapped on an 8% opal there as well. So overall, the outgoing for this entire theme in general is pretty much over like 30%. I'll be like 37, 36 outgoing. I can't do the mental math in my head. Now, for the triangle socket, you can do whatever you really want. It's up to your own preference. We have the Rebirth item card, which you can actually buy from the Wallaroo Jewel vendor in Wallaroo. 730 base healing, and then 450 shield or absorb shield on all your allies. I actually like this Rebirth a lot just because it's 7 pips instead of the traditional 8. But again, you can put whatever you want for the triangle socket. It doesn't even have to be an item card. Maybe you want a little bit more shadow rating, so you can put like a shadow triangle socket on there, or whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Now for the amulet, we have the Lively Nightmare amulet. Now this one you can actually farm for in the Nightmare Gauntlet. We talked about this in our free-to-play build. If you don't have that gauntlet, just leave a friend code. I'll accept your friend code, and then you go over to the castle tours, and then you can farm that gauntlet yourself. The trick is to just kind of farm for the badge completions, and then once you're done with that, then head over and do it as a max level wizard. Go to the crafter, and then craft it right there. As a fair warning, it does take polygons from Novus, so hopefully you have access to get to those areas. But it's not that hard as long as you put some time and effort, and if you somehow just don't have it, that's completely fine. You can use whatever amulet you want, but this amulet is pretty good because it comes with a double square socket. So check this out. So 672 max health, right? 10% universal resist. That is a lot of resist to put on an amulet, right? And then over here, 180 life pip conversion, 62 critical block. And then for the 2 square sockets, we have 8% and 8%. We love the 8%. Now over here, the item cards you get is a brace item card, which is a minus 20% damage reduction to incoming spells for 4 rounds. And then you also have Immolate for some reason, in case you want to cast it. There you go. Maybe want to break a shield or something. I have no idea. But it's a pretty cool amulet nonetheless. And again, you can use whatever you want. It might depend on your playstyle, but I really love this amulet. Been using it for a while. It's a pretty solid choice, right? Over here, we got the ring, and of course, we're doing another throwback to the stone of the other side. Now, in our previous build, I think we mentioned the new one where it just came with like mana and stuff. I mean, the Sanguine Monster Hide Ring is still a good choice. However, we're going to be using the stone of the other side to really get in a lot of outgoing. And I hear this statement every year, Richard, the Ring of the Dying Stars, but no, this ring, still to this day, holds up the most outgoing capabilities whatsoever. Because you have the base, then you have the circle socket, and then you have a square socket, right? A lot of the rings you see only have a square socket, right? And that's where you don't maximize on your outgoing. A lot of people like to gaslight me and say, no, this ring sucks. No, this is a really good ring. It's not too hard to get. I believe it drops in Avalon. It's a really easy ring to get. You pretty much get it for like mobs and stuff like that, or bosses. But 242 max health, 176 max mana, 12% pip chance, 15 critical block, and 33 base outgoing. And then for the tier socket, I just have a balanced feint. The balance feint is kind of all over the place. It doesn't stack with a regular trained feint. I think Court knows a little bit more about this. You know, I don't make this game. Quite frankly, I don't really care. But if I had to, I would just put any other jewel in. Because I already have feint chain. And honestly, I rarely even use this to begin with. It does bypass a little bit of bosses' cheats, because apparently bosses don't really deem it as a quote-unquote feint. So I don't know much about that. If you want to use it, there you go. But even if you put in mana, I think mana would even be a little bit more viable at that point. But again, you don't have to put item cards in it if you don't want to. But then for the circle socket, we have a 8%. Then for the square socket, we have another 8%. So yeah, this ring is busted. Please get this ring if you don't have it already, right? Now for the pets are going to be subjective to whatever you want to do, right? If you're someone that, you know, is looking for a nice little outgoing pet, they have a ton in the kiosk. Just search for like medic or spellproof or whatever, because my pet has always been a Dryad. I love the Dryad. It's exclusive. It is exclusive to Life Wizards only. If you don't have that, it can be any base pet you want. It's really all up to your preference. The only thing I recommend is probably Spellproof, Spell Defy, just to bulk up your resist a little bit. We also have Maycast Unicorn as well as one of the talents. Now remember, Unicorn got buffed ages ago, so it's at a base of 465, and our outgoing is going to be passive, meaning that the outgoing that the pet does is directly from our stats, so you're going to see some pretty awesome numbers, right? We also have Maycast Cycle of Life, which is also another throwback. Now this one back in the day used to rock. I don't know if it's still a decent one to have, but this will increase our outgoing to 25%. And also have a 5% pip chance, and also 10% incoming death damage for the next 4 rounds. This is a pretty good thing in case you're passing a lot, or in case it just cast magically. Well, now you're getting a little bit more outgoing, and when we're focusing on a build that loves outgoing, then this is a pretty good one. Of course, you can get Mighty and some other selfish talents to really bulk up your outgoing, but for me personally, I really just don't like the Mighty talent in general. I know it buffs up the stats a little bit, but I just feel like you're losing out on a lot of stuff such as Maycast and some other talents that you might want to have. So in my opinion, I think it should just be Spellproof, Spell Defy, and then Healer, Medic, and then whatever else you want. but that's just my own preference. You can do whatever you want, right? And then over here, we also have the medic talent, which is at 8%, if I haven't said so already. But then check this out. We have the Maycat's Pigsy Jewel, which also gives us the healer substat. So now we get 2 Maycats pretty much from the unicorn, which is just a base talent, and then from the jewel of the Pigsy, the Maycat's Pigsy. Now the Maycat's Pigsy is a very tricky card, or it's a tricky jewel to get. You have to buy it at a certain month of the game, right? So we got the Crocker Jewels over here. Over here, Final Bastion did a little report about it ages ago. It's available in March and September, right? So around that time frame is when you should see it available, right? And it is a pretty good spell, right? It's a base of 750 healing. That is awesome. Just to have that as a burst, that was awesome. Like, this is really cool. I love it. Pretty cool stuff. I would highly recommend it. If you don't have it, it's like one of the best jewels out there to have. Besides Maycat's Mass Faint, which is also a pretty good jewel to have. But overall, I love this pet. I think it's a pretty solid choice, and I think it's pretty cool. Now, over here, we have the mount, and we are including the Mammoth Mini Mount. Now, unfortunately, that does not drop in the Jeweled Slopes at all. I think we mentioned that in our free-to-play build. It is still available in the Crown Shop if you want to buy it separately. I think it's like 7,000 crowns or 8. I mean, we could check right now. But it is sad to see that it does not drop anymore. It just got changed ages ago. I don't know what. Oh, okay. I beg my pardon. I beg my finest pardon. Hey, wouldn't it be an expensive build without a 9,000 crown mount? Wow. Yeah. It's crazy because I had this gifted to me ages ago by, I believe, Blaze Iron Gem. I believe that was their name. Wow, 9,000 crowns. Woo! Yeah, and it does not drop anymore. So it is exclusive to the Crown Shop. So I'm sure that will be a nice little payday for KI, because wow, that is a lot, man. So make sure to check that out. Oh my goodness. And you don't need it. It's one of the things where you don't need it, but it is nice to have a little bit more outgoing. You know, you honestly can live without stat mounts. You know, I really don't think you need to like have stat mounts in order to play the game. It's kind of, again, all up to your own preference on what works better for you. And then over here we have the deck, where the deck, again, it could be any square or circle socket because we want to put a 8% on it regardless. So we have the Array of the Re-Risen. Now this is from the Liches and Legends Gauntlet. It comes with a base of 273 max health, 84 critical block, and 64 critical rating. A +1 starting pip, so you'll start off with that. And then over here, 55 Arc Mastery, which is pretty cool. And then you also have the square socket, which is at 8% because we love our outgoing. And it also comes with a item card, Stabilize, which is kind of like a buffed up version of Brace. It's a -25% incoming damage. So pretty cool. And like I said, it doesn't have to be this deck, as long as it's anything like a circle or square, just so you're maximizing that outgoing, right? Yeah, there's a lot of options you can do, honestly. One of them have a little bit more critical, but a little less health. You know, it's all up to whatever, you know, you want to do. I think I had one that had like regenerate, yeah, but this one just doesn't have any critical whatsoever, so I don't use it. But again, there's a lot of possibilities that you can do. Elixirs, you don't need any elixirs, so yeah. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the stat reveal of this whole entire thing. And let me just say this before I show you the stats. I was honestly shocked and surprised that this works. And especially if you're a life wizard, it's just insane to me how, I wouldn't say easy, because obviously this is expensive. This is a very expensive build, but it is kind of crazy to see how evenly stuff kind of goes in play. You know, like everything just works out the way it's supposed to work out. And I've been making healing builds before even the healing pins or the power pins or whatever, like before any of that stuff. So it is pretty cool to see. Now, the tricky part is about the pin. The pin system is that they kind of nerfed them in the Darkmoor update. So if you're Storm, I think your max shield pin for healing is like only at 13%. So it actually might be way better to just choose any other hat that has a little bit more outgoing rather than the pins, because again, I think you can get the robe universally and all that stuff. But when it comes to the pins, that will definitely be subjective on your own school, right? So now I get to show y'all the stats, and I am just so excited. I'm so excited. Now let me just, I don't want it to spoil itself by showing like the whole thing. Let me just get it set up. Okay, there we go. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't showing you the outgoing yet. Alright, so over here, no, not that, that's the screen. Over here we got the stats. Oh yeah. Alright, lock in, ladies and gentlemen. We have a total of 12,976 health, which honestly, I might just slap on a health jewel just so we can just get to 13,000 health overall. I really don't think that we need the balance feint. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do that now. Where's the balance feint? We really don't need this. I can buy one real quick. Again, it's just like, there's a lot of things in this game that I don't really understand or that seem a little bit like, I wouldn't say useless, but like, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, what would I rather use, a balance feint or a little bit more health? Ironically, I would rather use a little bit more health. In most cases, a lot of people don't even want you to use balance feint. They want you to use like anything else, like an item card or like a potent or whatever. Yes, nightmares of farming Heretical Academy for some relics. But yeah, honestly, if you want to get to health, yeah, let's buy one of these. 145, like that's awesome. Actually, let's buy a couple of those. Honestly, 145 is solid. That's actually really solid. Yeah, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Now I am at 13,000 health. Yeah, definitely worth it. Okay. Moving on. Our mana is 529. Our damage is all over the place, but we don't necessarily care about damage as much because this is in the damage set. The resist is 76 universal, which is actually pretty good. Our accuracy is at 10 universal, and then 22% for life. I have a little bit more for, I guess, myth, but again, it might just depend on whatever you want to do, you know, whatever suits your fancy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to show you the outgoing, and when I just say that this build probably is one of my best builds, I gotta hand it to KI, especially with the healing pins upgrades. It's really awesome. Check this out. Alright, I'm not even gonna read the rest, I'm just gonna tell y'all outgoing. We have a total of 270 outgoing. Take that, alright? Alright, take a picture of it, smell it through the phone. That is a lot of outgoing. Now, can we increase it? Yes, but it's not worth the loss of stats. It's not worth it, okay? 170 outgoing is more than enough, alright? And I'm sure all of y'all will be like, Richard, I'm at like 300 outgoing. Like, I mean, good job, alright? I'm proud of you, but I don't want to go too crazy and just have like no resist or no health or sacrifice a lot of my pip chance, right? Because the pip chance, you're also going to have your jaw drop as to like how perfect it is. Alright, but the critical rating is a little low. It's at 208. And again, if you want to increase it, you can definitely get rid of the hat and boots and just equip anything that has some critical stats to it. And again, it's all up to your own preference. We also have 748 universal critical block, which is also pretty cool. Then we got 15 life pierce, which we don't really care much about. And sadly, no stun resist, because King's Isle does not make any stun resist gear anymore. So stun resist is pretty much useless. Now over here, I'm going to show you the second screen. This is massive. Check this out. Our pip conversion is at 796. That is awesome. And our power pips are at 102%. That means we will never get a single pip beside the single round, obviously, ever in the entire game. Now, if I were to take the wand off, then I would have to find a way to get more pip chance. And I didn't want to use a pip jewel. I specifically did not want to use like a 10% lustrous pip opal, even though I have a lot of those. I didn't want to use that because I wanted that rebirth item card. So the fact how we are at the perfect power pip chance is awesome. In most of these builds, I've always had a problem with staying at the power pip cap, which is at 100, whatever. I've always had trouble with that, but this just works, and that's awesome, right? Shout out pip rating, we have 121, which isn't that bad, and then Arc Mastery rating is at 199, which is also not too bad as well. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the stat recaps, or the stats overview. Let's talk about our deck setups, because there is a lot of things to consider with the deck setups, right? Over here, let's just clear out the page. Let's talk about the item cards. You got your minus 55% Tower Shield, got Celestial Intervention, you have the Life Blade from the Dryad pet, and then you have the Minor Blessing, then you have Sweet Swarm item card, which is also from your Dryad pet as well, and then you have the Regenerate item card, which is from the Wand, which is also pretty cool. This can also be fused with Toilet as well. Now we also have the Hammer Dryad spell, which is probably the #1 reason I even still use the Dryad pets. It doesn't have to specifically be the Life Dryad. It can be either the Death, Fire, or Storm one, and you'll get this Hammer Dryad spell at, think, like Ancient or something like that. But it's a base of 800, and it removes a heal over time off of all your friends. So it's an AoE heal, and also an AoE, like, mass triage. So that's awesome. And then we have the Rebirth item card as well, which is also pretty awesome. We have Immolate, because why not? We have Moon Shield, because why not? And we also have Starfall, because why not? We also have Brace, and we also have Stabilize, because why not? Now for your main deck, obviously the #1 thing you're gonna want is Pigsy. If you don't have Pigsy already, in the big year of 2025, I don't know what to tell you. It's been out for a very long time. You can try farming the Gold Skeleton Key boss for it. You can also get them in the Dragonspire raid as well. But primarily, if you just get the spell in general, you're pretty much set. Bottom path of Pigsy isn't really that good anymore. I mean, it's still fun to use, but it's a target spell, so you actually have to target your opponents, or you have to target your allies, and I don't know, I just don't like what they did with it. So it's also not viable in like raids at all. So, if you're someone that raids a lot, you really don't need a reason to use it. Maybe unless you're doing challenge mode instances where you need a healer, but even then, I don't know, I just don't think it's needed anymore, in my personal opinion. And also, you can reshuffle these cards in, unlike the bottom path where it's limited to 4 and 4 only. So, yeah, top path is pretty fun. Another healing spell you can do is Sweet Swarm. Bottom path is pretty fun. It clears 2 traps off and then replaces the opponent or the player that you're casting it on with a 25%, which is also pretty good, right? If you don't like that, you can go with the top path, which is pretty much a similar thing, same thing, but it's all up to your preference. We're gonna slap in some unicorns because we are the unicorn callers and we love that spell. And it's also a nice alternative to Pigsy if you don't have Pigsy and if you don't have any life pips or school pips for the life of you, you can do unicorn because unicorn is really good as well. Let's go over to regenerate. We have bottom path regenerate, it doesn't really matter. And then we have Tramoret, which we have bottom path for that. So bottom path regenerate, basically the main burst initial heal is nerfed, and you only get a couple copies of these. So you basically just do that. I only have it at bottom path because I do raid a lot. If you want to do top path, that's perfectly fine. It's pretty much the same exact thing. And we also have a Tauret, which, be surprised, a lot of people may have not gotten the Selenopolis spells, right? They may have not done the spell quest for it. They may have not gotten enough spellments to unlock it overall. There's actually a few people I know that don't have the Selenopolis new spells at all. Because Selenopolis overall, a lot of people thought that it was a side world, it's mainline, and people just kind of quested through it, didn't really care about much, so they can get to Dark more. But this is a really good spell to have if you are a life wizard, because if you have bottom path, it's going to put on a base of 1,402 heal overtimes of that, right? With that base, it's pretty insane, right? And it's also going to clear a damage overtime for a base of 440, right? Now, I believe that my Tauret is actually upgraded because, of course, I was, I was actually the only one like doing Selenopolis. If you do top path, though, it will just add on a pip, and it's also a burst heal. I don't think you need the top path. I really do like the bottom path. I think bottom path is really good. But that's all up to your own preference. Now, when you get the two spells together and you fuse them together, you basically get a combination of both burst and heal overtime. So it will do a burst heal of 185 and then a heal overtime up to 2,160. You get 3 of those heal overtimes for 5 rounds. You can also set up Jin Gambits with that if you have a Storm Wizard with you. So this right here is a very powerful spell to use, and that's why we have it included in the deck. The next thing, while we're even in here, we'll talk about Wings of Night, which is basically just Wings of Fate, but they buffed it up in the update, so now it does a base of 825 heal overtime. That's awesome. And then we'll obviously gonna include it in here, why not? Now, in order to do that, you obviously need Wings of Fate, and you also need Dark Seraph. Now, Dark Seraph you get for free if you're a life wizard or a other type of wizard, so you don't really have to waste a training point. But if you're like an off-school wizard, you might have to use a training point, and you might also have to learn the spell in general, and farm for spellments, and it's a whole thing. But overall, Wings of Fate did get buffed, and I do like how it's a little bit more better. The shadow pack for it is Charms Off Yourself, which honestly, you shouldn't really worry too much about the shadow packs. I mean, the shadow packs are alright, but it's like nothing too crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can live without it. While we're talking about shadow, Rebirth as well, put that in. We love Rebirth. It's a great spell. Great burst healing spell. It costs 8 pips. We absolutely love that. We don't really need Scion of Life, but if you want to put it in there just for the giggles, sure, go for it. And then I would also maybe put in like a Guardian Spirit for yourself only, just in case you somehow randomly die. I try to cast this on other people, but other people just tend to flee anyways, and it's a whole process. But yeah. Also, maybe put in Sanctuary as well, because this will increase your outgoing to 35%. Now remember, our outgoing is at 270%. So that, mixed on with the Sanctuary, if you haven't cast it up, you're going to be over 300 outgoing, which is absolutely impressive. So definitely make sure to put in some Sanctuary if you're at a boss fight where you can use it. And then the rest is completely up to you regarding healing spells. Maybe you want to put in Grendel Amend because that also got buffed as well. It is a really good spell to have. And then for the astral spells, maybe empowerment, so you can increase that pip flow. Because you want to make sure that you have enough pips to cast a lot of these spells, right? Attenuate is also pretty good in case you're trying to be a support role. This will basically increase the amount of damage that the enemy receives from all attacks. Now, concerning Shadow, there is a few things that you can do. We talked about Dark Surge. This will take 5% of your health, but it will also give the player or yourself basically a +1 magic weaving. The iPad's right here. I have it. Right here. It's in there. A lot of people, including Clifford, do not like Dark Surge. I really like Dark Surge, but a lot of people don't. Same thing with Empower. A lot of people do not like the spell changes, but I really do like it. Previously, some of these spells sucked, and it didn't really mean much, but honestly, the fact that you do get a pip that's based off your own school, and then you'll get another power pip that is based off your magic weaving school. If you don't have magic weaving enabled, then it will just give you a power pip. But yeah, it's a pretty good spell to have if you're a support player. And it only takes 1 shadow pip. And if you're not really using your shadow pips, then I would highly recommend using that, because you can basically be a pip battery. Now over here we also got Donate Shadow, which also got insanely buffed, because previously it sucked, nobody used it. But now they made it a whole lot better, so I would also recommend using that. And I would also slap in the Shadow Sentinel, because, ladies and gentlemen, Shadow Sentinel got insanely buffed. This spell is insane, because instead of it intercepting like the traditional, I think like 10% or 25%, it got buffed up to 50%. So you can intercept 50% of damage from all of your allies. And considering that you're also going to take minus 30% incoming damage, like, and we have the resist, like, you're barely going to take any damage. Like, this is a really good spell. I highly recommend putting a training point on that. Highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend it. You might even save some people's life with it, right? Shadow Seraph is also pretty good. It got buffed up to a plus 35% outgoing. So maybe you could have Shadow Seraph up, and then the 35% Sanctuary, or the plus 60% Sanctuary that you get from the treasure card, and then you have Cycle of Life up, and then you'll be doing some insane, wacky numbers. That much outgoing is not needed, but if you really wanted to show off, go for it. But that is pretty impressive overall, right? You don't need this other version of Dark Seraph, only if you're fusing it with Wings of Fate. And then last but not least, if you are I would just say this for everybody, please carry reshuffles, okay? If you don't want to learn the spell, I understand that. At least buy it as a treasure card and put it in your like side deck, because the problem I have, and this is the one thing I wish they would make a tier socket of, is a reshuffle. That would be something I would definitely put on all of my tier sockets, because dude, a lot of people go into the game, they bring 1 attack spell, and then they ask, oh, I ran out of spells. Oh my gosh, the Storm Wizard ran out of spells. What will we ever do? Then they flee and come back, and then they ruin it for everybody because it messes up the game. Please carry a reshuffle. Alright? Not just for a support player, but just for people in general. Okay, if you don't want to train for it, just buy the treasure card. Okay? I don't understand why people don't pack it. I really don't. Like, just pack it in your TC deck. Like, why? People make this game so unbelievably, like, frustrating. Also, if you have no idea what to train for the spell, if you wanted to, it's in Colossus Boulevard, right? But a lot of people don't use the spell. I don't know why. Now, Oni's Shadow is a awesome spell as well. You're going to get pretty much a brace, which is a minus 20% aura around you. And it's also going to place a plus 35 hex trap times 2, so 2 of those on a target. So that's another good spell to have as well. Also, you got Jin's Fortune, which is going to give a heal over time to a player and also a shield. That is another good spell I would highly recommend using. So they did a lot with this update. Just a lot of people just don't want to hear it. We got the Steel Pip from the thing. You don't really need Steel Pip and all that stuff. The rest of the spells are kind of up to you to decide on what you want to do. Maybe you want a little more singular healing. If that's the case, I would recommend something like a Satyr. Or maybe get rid of Grendel's Amends and just put in like a Pixie. Honestly, I probably wouldn't recommend Grendel Amends. I would just recommend something like a Fairy. Because at least with that, we're not really going to fizzle as much. But with Grendel Amends, we do have the chance of fizzling. And since that's the case, we would need a little bit more accuracy. But it's still a fun spell to use. Alright, that wraps it up for the entire deck loadout. Of course, Stun Block's also pretty good too. They moved the spell. Diego does not sell it anymore. You have to go to the Ice Tree Calvin in Ravenwood to train this spell, right? And then that's pretty much it. Megaton is also good. It forces the enemies on yourself. Also a pretty good spell to have. It's also good for advanced combat in general. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the spells, guys. Daybreaker, Nightbringer, you don't need. I feel like a lot of people don't know about this. It basically delays your one cast. I don't think I'm not going to include that because I don't think a lot of people use it. Maybe I'll put it in just for the giggles. I don't know. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. That's pretty much it. That is the level 180 build. So to cap it all off, the total outgoing that we have is at 270%. And like I said, it could go way higher, and I'm sure you guys will probably boost it up way higher. I just don't think it's worth the loss of stats or the loss of other stuff. Just so feel free to mess around with it and have fun with it. I think the saddest part about doing all of these healing videos is that we're kind of getting to a point. I don't know if I mentioned this in the free-to-play healing video, but we're getting to a point where content doesn't really need a healer at all. You know, now there are still bosses out there that might require it, or at least be nice to have, such as the Devourer or Cavity Chamber in Caramel, and some other bosses. Those are some particularly my favorite because I actually feel like I can tap into my life force and actually help people out. But now it's just like, oh, spam feints, spam blades, and then just hit, and then it's a really boring combat situation. And I think that's what they try to do with challenge mode, but like, challenge mode isn't fun because of the stat caps and then the spell limitations and all the other extra rules. It's just not fun. So yeah, typically you'll see me a lot doing some other older content, but in my personal opinion, there's just not a lot of people healing anymore because there really isn't a need to. All the Storm Wizards want is to just feint spam, or all the Fire Wizards want is to Scald Incinerate. So, you know, it just kind of gets boring after that, you know? That's probably why I don't like some of the newer content anymore, you know? It's probably a reason why. But that is it for the build. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, until then, I will see you guys later. Peace out.